Okay, want to remember that life in this world is involved in a dispute. The dispute or the issue that's involved is would man serve God for love or for money? And when we're talking about the public, we're really talking about charity. When we're talking about private, we're talking about dishonest gain, wealth, using other people. So our life begins off in a dispute. So it's kind of like a two-edged sword document because a claim has been made against us. A statement of birth is like a statement of claim, and all the details are placed on there, but to an extent what's happening, the implication is because the parents were involved in a social contract with the state that they're for hire and they want to receive benefits when they want to achieve wealth. There's a cost for that within the public because the public being used for such a private gain has only a way to control it based on preventative measures. So if you've probably wondered why you're feeling like you're taxed to death, it's probably because you are, because the fact is that you're removing the lifeblood out of the public because the public only exists through the idea of contribution. And so therefore, if you wanted a perfect world, all the private enterprise that's out there would be giving everything to the public. There'd be no need for the private to have wealth, because why would one man need more than another? How much food, shelter, clothing does someone need? But we go beyond that thought, and there the idea of greed and wealth and accumulation and hoarding and all those things come about. So the statement of birth is kind of an interesting document because it's really dealing with a claim made against you, almost like Satan, if you have any understanding of the Bible, the book of Job, where Satan made a claim to God that man wouldn't serve him for anything other than private gain. That if God took away everything he had, he would actually spit on God, despise him, and would show his true colors. But we know in the account on Job, the ancient writings, that Job actually did not blame God for what was happening to him, even though Satan was able to remove his food, shelter, and clothing to a large extent, the things he accumulated in those areas in wealth, but he was not allowed to take his health.
His life.
And therefore, the health end at the end, which would eventually remove his life, was not taken away, even though he was still cursed with maladies. He was not able to actually remove his life force. So we've got a similar thing going on, because it's not by chance that we use the name Job, which spells the same as job, which technically is like official public business for private dishonest gain, which Webster's dictionary defines the word as. So we're in the same challenge. Are we here for love or for money? Unfortunately, we tend to continue the errors of our forefathers. So under a statement of birth, there's like a statement of claim made in a court, because a registration is done, and a registry is a court. So if you do research on that word, you'll find out that each registry system of the government is actually a court in itself. And when you register something into a court, a claim is being made, someone's making a claim, and in this, a claim is being made, and in that situation, the child or the name is being claimed, and because there could be implications of usage or debt owed, the claim stays on file until proven otherwise. So we're in a unique situation of whether or not we're going to basically prove the claim is true or not true. Now, if the statement of claim in its hypothesis states that I'm armed, and the surname would be an implication of arms, I'm bearing arms, then I would be a hand in some formal paper transaction. Am I for hire? Well, based on the fact that the parents were for hire, because they were involved in a social contract through the social insurance program, in the United States known as the Social Security Program, though its originality or origin came from the term social insurance. So the social insurance program claimed the fact that someone was going to sell themselves for wages. They were not going to be involved in the social arrangement of society for love. They were in there for money. And if anybody says otherwise, well, then prove anybody who's ever been involved in this system, who holds these identity documents, plus holds a social security or a social insurance card, let alone the other benefits that come with it, hospitalization plans, pension benefits, unemployment benefits, all these things are included in it. So there's a concern here. You wouldn't need those benefits stipulated if you were there strictly for gratuitous involvement. In other words, you're there for as a gift. Now, the interesting thing about this document is there's problems on the claim that's being made here on the statement of birth. Because for one thing, the parents are being made to fill it out or else. So in a sense of voluntary, we know it couldn't be voluntary. So if it was a contract, it's not a voluntary contract, which is an error in making a contract, because if you do a contract under force and duress, it's void. But if the parents were involved in a contract that implied the fact that they needed to provide all information from anything they would ever in that contractual arrangement produce as income, which the child would be considered income, they would need to declare the child, because the child would be considered income. Without getting into provocative terms here, we'd understand that the child would be income in the arrangement of producing. So therefore it would be a production between the two parents. And therefore a statement of claim was made, registered the income, and the parents basically were making a donation. Because a contract in charity law is based on giving something to the state or giving something to a charitable organization and then receiving back a tax receipt, which is a contract, not a gift. Though that's why we would understand that, at least within the Canadian Income Tax Act, there is no definition of charity, because it's not really charity. It's really fraud, because a gift is no consideration. In this situation, the parents were giving something in but were receiving benefits for the child, therefore there is consideration. And therefore that's why a tax receipt is issued. So here we come to the second stage. After you receive, the parents fill in the statement of the registry, they get a receipt for their donation, which now says what was placed in has a taxable relief to some extent. And then the government in turn will actually provide a tax deduction or a tax credit for what was placed in. That certainly has nothing to do with gifting, charity, grace. This all has to do with legalization of something. And because we're not doing pure charity, in which Christ represented love, and the name that was given into the arrangement is charitable in a pure sense, the problem is the document doesn't reflect it to be a pure charity. It reflects it to be something that was given in consideration of receiving something back. Therefore, all that was received was a tax receipt for the property placed in. And therefore, from that point on, there'll be certain benefits that are deductible within that arrangement. And therefore, they give the token, which we use to facilitate our lives for private gain, because we were not putting something in for 100% pure love and charity. Therefore, we're for hire. Now, the concern on this arrangement on for hire is that would be the same word as prostitution, because prostitution really meant hireling. Someone who was selling themselves for their talents someone selling themselves for wages. And if you sell yourself for wages, then certainly you're not giving yourself for free. You're expecting something back. And that's why they probably rely on the terminology, even in the birthing arrangement, the mother is considered to be expecting.